So this person says, I appreciate and agree with most of what you say, but the beauty of being on plan 1 or plan 2, given you work a few decades and retire at your designated age, is that you don't really have to plan much. I'll retire soon on plan 2 at the designated retirement age and will make more money for my pension and Social Security than I did while I was working. And the best part is, with much respect to you, is that I never have to plan for a thing. All right, let's talk about this one. So plan 2, amazing plan. You're not going to find any argument from me here. But you still need a plan. Income doesn't solve all of your problems, especially when you have fixed income. Okay, so we're going to go over 5 points about things you still need to plan for or account for, even if you're on plan 2, even if you have more income retirement than you did while working, or you think everything's all set, because if you can make more money retired than working, that somehow these other problems don't exist. So let's dive into it. So the first thing that this person needs to understand, or anyone on plan 2 with this same kind of mindset, is that even though you have more income retirement than you did while working, is that you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You still have to wait for payday. So if you want to go on that vacation or you got to fix something, you don't got the funds for that if you're not saving anywhere else, right? So I'm assuming this person is no individual. So he didn't do any planning. He just worked, saved, retired, got his plan 2, got his Social Security. So if that's you, remember that you're still going to be living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I don't know anybody who wants to brag about living paycheck to paycheck ever, let alone in retirement, when you want to be doing all the fun things. All right, so that's just one thing. But let's dive into the main ones. That was just like a side note. I got the 5 main points still coming. So first, you need to remember that with Social Security, it's still taxable money too, and it depends on your income. And if you have a big fat plan 2 pension, you're probably over the income threshold anyways, and you're going to start seeing tax dollars being withheld from your Social Security benefits. So single filers, once you start making over $25,000, up to 50% of your benefits become taxable. Once you cross $34,000, then up to 85% become taxable. If you're married and you file jointly, income after 32 is then 50% becomes taxable, and then after 44 up to 85% becomes taxable. And now that's what they call provisional income. So for those numbers, you take your plan 2 pension plus half of your Social Security benefits, and then if you have any other rental income, retirement distributions, you add all that on top of it. So those numbers haven't been updated since the 80s. So most people are paying taxes on Social Security nowadays. All right, so to this point, you still have to pay taxes on this money. If this person did have any savings, and let's say they're pre-tax and you pulled money out of, that all becomes taxable in the current tax bracket that he's in. So the PERS 2 pension is going to fill up the bottom part of this tax bracket. Then you got Social Security on top of that. Then basically every dollar you take out at that point, we tax at that marginal rate. Effective rate might be less, but the marginal rate is going to be at that top end of the bracket that you're in. So this person, he owes 22% of every dollar that gets taken out of any retirement accounts if you had one. All right. Part 2 of this is you got to watch for tax increases. So when you're living paycheck to paycheck, everything's pre-tax. An increase in taxes is a pay cut for you, right? So if this person is making $60,000 a year off of their pension and $20,000 off of their Social Security, so they got $80,000 a year coming in, guaranteed for life, and taxes are at 20%, then they go up to 30%, then you have to owe more of your money to the government. So you're going to see a decrease in what you get to take home. So if we had $80,000, just keep numbers simple here. Let's say if you were paying at the 20% level, you're paying about $16,000, right? So you'd be taking home like $64,000. But if now you owe 30%, because that's what the government said, and if you're stuck in that bracket because you have those guaranteed income sources, there's nothing you can do about it. Now your take-home pay goes down to $56,000. So you get a $8,000 tax cut because taxes increase by 10%, and there's nothing you can do about it. And if you were relying on that $64,000 or $5,000 a month to cover your bills, and now you got to figure out how to make it work, earning $8,000 less, that might be a tough thing to do. And these tax codes, well, they don't change super often, they still do change, and they can last for years. The current tax code that we're in, got put in place in 2018 and is looking to change at the end of this year. Whether Congress does it or not, taxes are changing at the end of 2025, right? So if you don't want to be at the mercy of the IRS and tax code, this is something you need to plan for. That's is where having some type of savings, 403B, deferred comp, comes into play. If your income or pension goes down, your Social Security goes down because taxes increase, and we need additional money, you got no place to turn because you didn't plan for it. This is why you need to have savings. So dip into it to account for potential decreases in your take-home pay because of taxes. All right. Now, third point I want to make here is your healthcare costs. Healthcare is a very expensive thing you have to cover in retirement, and those costs are not fixed. They increase. You also don't know, when you're going to need to use healthcare, what's going to be covered, what's not covered, what's you owe out of pocket, depends on what healthcare plan you went with. But one thing's for sure is that healthcare insurance is expensive and it continually goes up. Even if you're in the PEB system, they still have increases. If you're in a position where the healthcare plan jumps up, that's going to cut into your pension plan or into your Social Security budget. So you're going to have a rising costs. If those costs increase by more than what your cost of living adjustment is accounting for, then you're going to start seeing it in your take home or what you can actually spend. So it can eventually creep up over time. Not to mention that if there is anything not covered by a plan and you have to pay deductibles or something out of pocket, then you may not have the funds readily available, to do that. Unless you're saving a significant part of your pension into like a savings account, which isn't earning much interest. You might have some of that, but eventually it's probably going to run out. If it's not growing with the market, at some point you may deplete it because it doesn't take much for healthcare, to wipe you out. I spoke with someone yesterday who actually went to undergo cancer treatments, and his injections, post-op rejections were $26,000 a shot. Now, it was covered mostly by his insurance plan, but could you imagine if that wasn't covered in the future or something changed and you had to pay for that somehow? That would hurt a lot of people. So it's something you have to watch for. Now, one thing that's not covered by any health insurance is long-term care coverage. Statistically, 70% of people are going to need some type of care, whether that's in-home care where someone comes and helps you out, or you have to go to a facility, you need some type of care. And if someone is watching you, essentially babysitting you for 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, even full-time care, and you got to pay that person's salary, that's why it's so expensive. If you have no plan to pay for long-term care, you have no savings to dip into, and you start getting hit with a $6,000 a month long-term care bill, where's the money going to come from? If it's more than what you're bringing from the pension, who's going to cover that bill? Now, some people think that Medicaid is going to cover them up, but Medicaid, a lot of facilities won't take it. You got to meet certain, income and asset requirements. So it's not something you want to bank on per se, and it ain't free. You can still get hit with a bill to put a lien on your home or your property, even when it's all said and done. They're not in the business to lose money. They're going to recoup it for you one way or another. So long-term care is something you really do have to plan for. Even if you're making more now in retirement, long-term care can easily wipe you out. Even if you don't have necessarily anything to lose, somebody's going to get hit with that bill eventually. Point number 4, inflation. Remember that the cost of inflation goes up, it's going to erode into your benefits. We've been seeing it a lot more lately. Back in 2022, we saw inflation briefly hit about 8%. The costing adjustment on PERS 2 is that cap is at 3%. Right? So if you have 8% inflation and they only got 3% benefit, which again only pays out in July, you are going to have to figure out how to deal with that until your next pay increase. And again, it's only 3%. So if you're ever in a place where inflation is running 4, 5, 6% and it stays there, it does not come down like it has in the past 2 years, it just stays persistent, that 3% benefit may not cut it. And you want to be hoping that DRS someone makes a change to increase the cost of adjustments or give one-time benefits. Right? We don't want to be at the mercy of the government. You want to have the funds available to pay for those increases if the 3% cost of adjustment isn't enough. So while PERS 2 is considered, a safe benefit, it's pretty much fully funded, the cost of adjustment may not keep up with your needs. Social Security, we always hear about how they may run out. People always want to cut it and this and that. While I consider still safe guaranteed money, there's always a chance they could change it. They could decrease benefits and things like that. It would be a tragedy, but with the government officials and the way they are, they don't rely on it, doesn't hurt them, doesn't hurt their donors or supporters, then it could happen. Now, my 5th and last point about this, about something you still need to plan for, is your estate plan. What happens when you're gone? So you didn't save anything, you got no assets to pass down. Does that mean you don't need a will, an estate plan, power of attorney, healthcare directive, trust, things like that? And while your needs may be simple, you may not need trust or things like that, you still need to have at least 3 key documents in place. Every person over age 18 needs to have at least some type of will that lets people know your wishes, some type of power of attorney, both financial and for healthcare. And you need to have your last will and testament. Essentially, what are your wishes, or how do you want to be cared for in the event you're incapacitated? Who's going to pull the plug? Do you want life-saving measures or not? It's still things you need to have said. If you don't have that, then no one has the right to make a decision. A lot of people think just because they're married that somehow their wife gets that ability. Now, unless you have that power of attorney with you, or the hospital has it, they can't take what your wife's wishes are. Doesn't matter how much you talk about it. If the document's not there, they can't act on it. So you still need to have an estate plan if you don't think you have any assets, right? I'm sure you still have bank accounts. Where's the plan to or the Social Security money and deposited? If it's a joint bank account, maybe you're okay. If you got any kind of accounts that are in your name only, your wife's not going to have access to that, right? If you're the one that files the taxes, who's going to be the one that helps her file the taxes. Also, part of that is, what your final wishes are, who's going to make that decision, right? A lot of people will list their spouse, and the next they have their kids. If they have more than one kid, which kid makes the decision? Are they all going to agree on it? Do you expect your kids to agree on when it's time to pull the plug on mom or dad? If you only list the older one, which is usually the default option, is the younger sibling going to hate them for the rest of your life? Without giving wishes clear, making clear estate plans, having the type of family meeting, then you can easily create a rift in your family. So estate planning is still super, super important. If you don't have any assets and you think you're all good with Plan 2 and Social Security covering all your expenses, estate plans are still something that need to be put in place and communicated with all parties. So there's no confusion about what your wishes are or the plan of action if or when the unfortunate events come. All right, so that's my response to that. So hopefully that give you guys some insight on things they need to plan for, whether or not you're on, Plan 2 or have Social Security or anything like that. These are all really good planning points. They go above and beyond just your pension plans, above and beyond just looking at investments, which I know a lot of people and a lot of advisors, that's where their whole focus of their meetings is what investments do we pick in that. The reason why I spend so much time talking about, retirement benefits is because it is a huge part of your retirement savings. Oftentimes people will say, is all you do is retirement benefits? And retirement benefits is something I talk about all the time because it is a big part, but it's not the only thing. There still needs to be a lot of planning that occurs. People in Plan 2 often have this mindset of, I don't have any assets, therefore I don't need a plan. I don't need a financial advisor. There's nothing really to manage. There's no investments. But that's not all we do. I have a lot of clients that essentially don't have investments or will do their own investment planning, but they still come to us for the outside help because they need someone to help them with their taxes, figure out their estate plan wishes, to make sure it's communicated correctly with the attorneys, right, to help make adjustments when times come. So there is still a need for financial advisors, even if you don't have any assets. Now, it may not be something you need to do every year, but still having one to talk to occasionally is not a bad idea, to make sure everything's to work out smoothly and to make sure that whoever inherits the money or has to deal with your estate has someone to contact to help sort out the affairs, because it's not a fun event to do on your own. All right, so that's it for this episode. If you haven't done so yet, in the link below, we have a new free community that I'm putting together. It's over on our website called School. It's exclusive for Washington employees. It's free to join. I got exclusive content on there about your state benefits. It's nothing that you're going to see on the podcast or on YouTube. In addition to that, I'm encouraging people to, post questions and share things there. We're trying to get a community going together so we can get this information out to everybody in Washington. Feel free to click that link and join if you can. If you know someone that's not in the group yet, send them the link so they can get in there. So join, drop a comment in the group, and I'll talk to you guys over on there. And until next time, always remember that your future depends what you do today.